I dropped my kids at my sister's house for an 8-week vacation because she does nothing all day, but she threatened to report me and now claims I put her in danger. Why is everyone acting like I'm the villain for wanting one break? I feel like everyone in my life has turned against me over one decision that I still believe wasn't unreasonable. I'm a single mom. I've been doing everything for 10 years with zero help. Their dad disappeared before Connor was even walking. I work full-time at a hospital scheduling desk. The hours are long, the shifts get flipped around, and the stress never stops. I barely sleep. I barely eat anything that isn't rushed. My whole life is work, homework, laundry, dishes, baths, lunches, bills, and then waking up to do it again. There's no break. There's no space. There's no breathing room. Everyone keeps telling me, you need to take care of yourself. But no one ever actually helps me do that. My sister Rachel is 29. She works from home as a freelance artist. She and her husband Ben don't have kids. She posts pictures all the time of her plants, her coffee setups, her little art desk, her hiking trips, her resin jewelry. She talks about mental load and recharging her energy. Honestly, it frustrates me sometimes because I don't have the luxury of taking a break. I don't get to recharge. I don't get to decide my day. I barely get to choose when I use the bathroom. So when I scroll through her feed and see her midday matcha latte or a painting she spent 4 hours on, yeah, I assume she has more free time than she admits. And she's always talking about her anxiety like it's a disability. I know anxiety is real, but I've seen her have anxiety days where she's still online making art or reorganizing her bookshelves, so I've always thought she exaggerated it. Our relationship is complicated because of this. I think she thinks I look down on her, which I don't. I just get irritated when she acts overwhelmed by things that look easy from the outside, while I'm drowning with 2 kids and a full-time job. A few months ago, my hospital rolled out a pilot program for burnout recovery. You earn PTO, they supplement it with a grant, and you get up to 8 weeks of leave if you qualify. My supervisor practically begged me to apply because I'd been snapping at patients and crying in the break room. I was approved. I thought it was a sign. 8 weeks. 8 weeks to get my head on straight. 8 weeks to sleep. 8 weeks to remember I exist outside of being someone's mom, someone's employee, someone constantly on duty. I didn't want to spend it stuck in my apartment still being the default parent. I wanted a real break. A solo trip. I haven't been on vacation since before Mia was born. The plan was to visit a friend in another state. Then maybe take a cheap cruise, or at least stay somewhere quiet where I didn't have to worry about anyone but myself. So I asked my sister if she could take the kids. Not for 8 weeks straight. I said, a few weeks. She immediately said she could only manage 1 week. I told her she was being dramatic, and that watching my kids didn't require her to climb a mountain. They're well behaved, they love her, they entertain themselves most of the time, and she works from home anyway. She said that didn't mean she had free time to be full-time childcare, that her deadlines matter, and she can't focus with kids in the house. That annoyed me because she paints and does commissions, which is flexible. It's not like she's in surgery. We argued. I told her I deserved help for once. She said she wasn't responsible for fixing my burnout. I told her family helps each other. She told me not to weaponize family obligations. I got mad. She got mad. It ended with her saying she couldn't do more than a week, period. I stewed over it for days. I felt like no one ever steps in for me. I saw that window of 8 weeks as the only chance I'd ever get to recover. If I didn't take it now, I'd never get another opportunity. So when the start of my leave came, I packed the kids' things, loaded them into the car, and drove to Rachel's house. The whole ride, I told myself she would adjust once she saw the kids. They're her niece and nephew. She loves them. I figured she'd protest at first, but then settle into it. When she opened the door and saw the suitcases, she looked confused. I told her I had to rip the band-aid off and that she'd be fine. She started panicking immediately, saying she didn't agree to this. I told her she was overreacting and the kids are easy. The kids ran inside happily because they love her, which I thought would help calm her down. It didn't. She kept saying, "Nora, I can't do 8 weeks. I never said yes to this." I told her she was being selfish and that I needed a break before I completely lost it. I kissed the kids goodbye and left. I knew if I stayed, she would physically block the door or guilt me until I caved. I told myself she'd calm down in a day and realize it's not a big deal. I blocked her messages because she kept texting, "Come back. I didn't agree to this. Come back now." I wanted peace. I wanted to feel like an adult making a decision for my own well-being for once. Then the call started. First from Ben, screaming at me for dumping responsibility they never agreed to. Then from my parents, demanding I go get the kids. Then from Rachel again threatening to call CPS or the police. I thought she was bluffing. Who calls CPS on their own sister? I told her to stop being dramatic. I said, "Your family. Step up. Hold it together for once." She said she was having panic attacks and couldn't sleep. She said she felt unsafe being responsible for them without preparation. I dismissed it because I thought she was guilt-tripping me. Then the kids FaceTimed me crying. Mia said Aunt Rachel was stressed and crying in the bathroom. Connor said, "Mommy, are you coming back?" Aunt Rachel said she can't do it. I told them everything was fine, and that adults get overwhelmed sometimes. Apparently, it wasn't fine. Rachel ended up calling the non-emergency line to ask what she should do if the guardian won't return. The police called me, asking if I intended to come back for my kids, or if I had legal guardianship paperwork designating her temporary caregiver. I didn't. They told me leaving the state without a written agreement was a problem and that I needed to pick the kids up immediately or formally sign documentation. That devastated me. I felt embarrassed, judged, and furious at Rachel for making this into something dramatic when I only needed help. My entire family has taken her side. My parents called me irresponsible. My brother said what I did was abandonment. I keep trying to explain that I deserved rest. I keep asking why it's so impossible for someone to help me for once. Why does everyone act like Rachel's anxiety is more important than my burnout? Why is everyone calling me dangerous or selfish or unfit when I'm the one who's been breaking my back for a decade? I thought family was supposed to help when you're drowning. Instead, they've all treated me like I'm a monster for wanting one break in 10 years. Reddit, am I really the villain here? I'm exhausted. I'm overwhelmed. I needed the time. Everyone is acting like I committed a crime instead of asking for support. Update 1. Everything hit me faster than I expected. I thought once I cooled down and once everyone stopped panicking, the situation would settle. I figured Rachel would eventually admit she overreacted, and I'd get a chance to explain myself. That's not what happened. Things escalated in a way I wasn't prepared for, and even though I'm still defensive, I'm also starting to see how badly I miscalculated what I put on her. I'm not excusing myself, but I'm not pretending I'm suddenly the villain of the world either. I'm in the middle of it, and trying to make sense of everything. CPS contacted me 2 days after the police warning. Not a courtesy call, a real one. A woman named Angela introduced herself, told me they received a report about a childcare agreement gone wrong, and she needed to verify the details. She asked if Rachel had agreed to take the kids for 8 weeks. I told her it wasn't 8 weeks, that it was supposed to be a few. She asked if I had any written documentation. I didn't. She asked if Rachel actually said yes. I hesitated, and I think she could tell. I said it was a mutual family arrangement, which was a stretch. She pressed further, asking when I planned to return for my kids, and when I told her the date I originally intended, she told me I needed to pick them up now or provide legal guardianship forms immediately. I tried arguing that Rachel was their aunt, that she knows the kids, that it wasn't dangerous for them to stay with her. She didn't argue back. She just repeated, "You need to pick up your children today." That hit me like a slap. I went from feeling justified to feeling cornered. I wasn't ready to face Rachel or my parents or anyone, but I didn't want this situation to escalate into something that could affect my job or put CPS in my life permanently. When I drove back to Rachel's house, the kids were already packed, their bags were sitting by the door, and the second they saw me, they ran toward me, but they weren't smiling. They clung to me like I had been gone for months instead of days. They looked exhausted in a way kids usually don't. Rachel looked worse. Her eyes were red and swollen. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her hair was messy. Her hands were shaking a little. The house wasn't filthy, but it wasn't clean either. There were dishes in the sink, blankets piled on the couch, toys thrown around in random places, like she hadn't been able to keep up with anything. When I walked in, Ben didn't say a word. He looked at me like he wanted me to leave immediately. Rachel finally said, "You put me in danger." I honestly didn't understand what she meant. I thought she was exaggerating again. I told her that the kids were fine, that she knew how to take care of them, that she wasn't actually in danger. She shook her head and told me she'd had 2 panic attacks in the middle of the night because she couldn't sleep and was terrified something would happen while she was responsible for them. She said she couldn't breathe or think straight, and at one point Mia woke up and saw her curled on the kitchen floor. That made my stomach twist, but I still didn't feel like she was being completely fair. I told her she should have called me instead of the police. She said she did call me, repeatedly, and I blocked her. Ben finally spoke up. He said, "You abandoned your kids here. Don't pretend you didn't." That made me defensive immediately. I told him it wasn't abandonment because I was coming back. He told me that intention means nothing when you leave someone with responsibility they didn't consent to. Hearing him say it that directly made me angry, but also embarrassed. I grabbed the kids' bags and took them to the car without saying much. On the drive home, both kids were quiet. That never happens. Usually they're loud, talking over each other, asking questions, bickering. Instead, they just stared out the windows. When we got home, Mia asked if I was mad at Aunt Rachel. I said no. She said she was scared because Rachel cried every night in the bathroom and tried to hide it, but the house was too small to hide crying. Connor asked if I left them there because I didn't want them anymore. That question almost made me crash the car. I pulled over and tried to explain that I would never leave them like that I just needed some time. But even as I said it, I realized what it must have looked like to them. When I finally called my mom to tell her I picked up the kids, she didn't congratulate me or soften up. She immediately told me I needed to apologize to Rachel. I said Rachel should apologize too for threatening to call the police. My mom snapped that Rachel had every right to call because she was terrified and didn't know what else to do. My brother texted me a few hours later saying he was taking a break from talking to me because he needed space from all the drama I caused. I haven't been cut off by family before. It felt like betrayal, even though I know they're frustrated. At work, things got worse. HR pulled me into a meeting. I assumed they just needed me to clarify some paperwork, but they said the leave program required me to remain reachable and available in-state unless I had formal documentation for childcare. They said I violated the terms by planning to leave without proper arrangements. Part of my grant was revoked. It wasn't the whole thing, but it was enough to screw up my bills. The vacation I thought I needed so badly was now completely off the table. When I tried unpacking our bags back at home, Mia came into my room. She sat on the edge of the bed and said, "I didn't like being at Aunt Rachel's." She kept apologizing to us for crying. I thought maybe she was sick or hurt. Connor came in too and said, "I missed you every day. I thought you left forever." Hearing that broke something open in me. I didn't plan to make them feel abandoned. I thought they'd be excited. I thought they'd have fun. I thought it would be easy for them because they love Rachel. But hearing them talk made me realize how differently they saw everything. I cried in the bathroom after I put them to bed. Not quiet tears, the ugly kind. The kind you try to hide because it feels shameful. Not because I'm a terrible mother, but because I finally understood that my desperation for a break didn't just fall on Rachel, it fell on my kids too. I made them feel unstable, I made them feel unwanted, and I didn't intend any of that. I still don't think I'm a villain. I don't think wanting rest makes me selfish or dangerous. But I can't ignore the part where I dumped responsibility on someone who couldn't handle it, ignored her boundaries, blocked her calls, and left my kids in a situation that scared them. I thought I needed a break, but I didn't realize how much pressure I dumped on everyone else. Final update. It's been a little over a month since everything blew up, and I didn't think things could get worse after the CPS call and losing part of my leave funding, but the fallout kept spreading in ways I didn't expect. I'm not writing this to get sympathy or to make myself look good. I'm writing it because the truth is messy, and I'm trying to sit with it instead of twisting it into something that excuses everything. I still don't think I'm a villain, but I can't pretend this didn't impact people in ways I didn't understand at the time. Rachel blocked me the day after I picked up the kids, not just muted or ignored. Full block on everything. Text, calls, social media. Even email bounced. Ben didn't block me, but he sent one message that was long enough I had to scroll 3 times to reach the end. He described everything I didn't see while I was checked out and imagining a vacation I never got to take. He wrote about Rachel having panic attacks at 2 in the morning, how she would shake so badly she couldn't lift a glass of water, how she would sit on the floor with her back against the fridge, hyperventilating while trying not to wake the kids, how Mia found her during one of those episodes and thought she was dying, how Connor started crying because he didn't know what to do and kept asking, "Where's Mom?" He said they barely slept because Rachel was terrified something would happen while she was too overwhelmed to function. He said, "You put my wife into a medical crisis because you wanted a break." That sentence hit hard. Not because I think it's entirely fair, but because I can't deny I didn't take her condition seriously. I always thought she exaggerated her anxiety. Seeing it written like that made me realize I never really believed her. I dismissed her as fragile when she was trying to manage something real. I never saw that side of her before, and that's because she never let herself fall apart in front of me. CPS wrapped up their investigation last week. They didn't charge me with anything, which was a relief, But they didn't exactly let me off easily either. They said my actions technically qualified as placing children with a caregiver who did not agree to the responsibility. They made me take a parenting class focused on communication, emergency planning, and consent-based childcare. They told me any future childcare arrangement needs written agreement, even with family. They also said they'll be checking in again in 3 months to make sure things are stable. It was humiliating sitting in a room with other parents who had their own crisis stories, knowing I was there because I pushed my sister past her limit and ignored every red flag. I kept telling myself I wasn't like them, but the truth is, I made decisions that put my kids in someone else's hands without considering their capacity to handle it. Intent doesn't erase impact. The kids haven't bounced back the way I hoped either. Mia started asking where I'm going every time I put on my shoes. It's constant. Even if I'm going to the mailbox, she needs a full explanation. Connor cries when I leave him at school, which he hasn't done since preschool. His teacher emailed me saying he's been withdrawn, quieter than usual, and he startles easily when someone raises their voice. She asked if anything stressful happened at home recently. Trying to explain that without revealing too much made me feel sick. I didn't realize how much they internalized. I thought kids were more flexible. I assumed they'd roll with it and be happy to see their aunt. Instead, they were scared and confused, and now they're clingy and anxious in a way that mirrors what I ignored in Rachel. The worst part is, they keep checking if I'm upset with them. That's how deeply they misunderstood the situation. They think my leaving them was about them, not me. That guilt sits heavy. After the CPS classes, I decided I needed my own therapy. I didn't want to go. I hate talking about myself, and I hate feeling judged by strangers. But I also realized I'd reached a point where burnout was running my life more than I was. The therapist didn't say what I did was unforgivable, but she also didn't let me wiggle out of my own responsibility. She told me I'd reached a point where I was trying to escape motherhood instead of seeking support. She said exhaustion doesn't justify bypassing someone else's boundaries. She pointed out that I projected my own resentment onto Rachel, assuming she had it easier and therefore owed me something. It stung hearing that because it was true. I assumed Rachel's life was simple because it wasn't mine. I didn't see her deadlines, her workload, her panic attacks, her need for structure. I saw the Instagram version, and I weaponized that version when I wanted something from her. Therapy hasn't magically fixed anything, but at least now I see the real patterns instead of pretending everything is fine except for one mistake. It wasn't one mistake. It was a series of assumptions and pressures I built over years. A week ago, I wrote a long letter to Rachel. Not to demand her forgiveness, not to beg her to talk to me. I wrote it to acknowledge what I did without blaming my situation. I apologized for forcing the kids on her, for invalidating her anxiety, for assuming her time was worthless because she didn't have children, for leaving her overwhelmed and scared. I didn't apologize for wanting help, but I apologized for the way I demanded it. She didn't respond, but my mom told me Rachel read it and cried. That's the only information I have. I don't know if she'll ever talk to me again. I'm not pushing her. In the meantime, I rearranged my entire schedule. I joined a single-parent support group. I applied for short-term respite care services the right way. I started budgeting more carefully so I don't end up desperate for escape again. I'm not dating. I'm not traveling. I'm building routine for the kids again because they need stability more than anything right now. I'm not pretending I'm a saint now. I'm not suddenly healed or wise. Some days I'm still irritated that my family treats me like the only one who messed up, even though I know why they feel that way. Some days I still think, I just needed one break. But I also can't deny that the way I went about it caused real harm. It didn't give me rest, it gave me consequences. I don't know when things will thaw with Rachel or Ben, maybe never, but I'm trying to accept that without spiraling into self-pity or anger. My kids are my priority now, and I'm trying to show them through consistency that I'm not going anywhere. I wanted escape, not rest. I wanted to stop being needed for once, but I chose the worst possible way to do it. Rachel told me I was weaponizing family obligations, and I didn't listen. Now I understand exactly what she meant.